A lot of businesses need a way to message their team members, and they need to do it a lot of times on a repeating basis until something gets done. So you might have a scenario where you've got, property management and you need to message all the maintenance workers with whatever tasks are coming due at that time. You might have a business scenario where someone's kind of summarizing what everyone's main responsibilities for a given day are based on their calendar. Today we're going to talk about a specific scenario for a group of people that are going on a storm call. So there's a lot of scenarios, whether tree trimmers or linesmen, where there's a foreman or some kind of leader position who needs to gather a team quickly. And so they've got a lot of contacts, maybe 20 contacts, but they only need a team of 5 or 10 or something like that. And so they want to send a message out to priority contacts first. And then as those people start responding yes or no, then they extend the amount of messages that they send until they've hit everyone. They don't want to send too many messages to annoy people, but they want to keep sending messages until they've either filled out the roster or they've kind of it's obvious they're not getting any more responses. So we're going to build the basic part of that system today for the storm call scenario. This scenario can be tweaked to fill almost any messaging kind of situation that you need. And one of the great things about messaging is that it's so unique to your business. The way that your message system needs to work, it's very hard to get an off-the-shelf one, but it's very easy to build a no-code one that uses AI. So that's what we're going to do today. Let's go ahead and jump in. Let's jump into the system that we have in place here. We've set up a scenario in Make called Storm Call Messaging System. We also have an error table. You could also use Google Sheets for this. And you would need 2 sheets if you're doing Google Sheets. So I've got a table called contact names, name, email, text, WhatsApp. And then I've got one called responses that's currently empty. And I'm going to be copying the contact names into responses. And this whole thing gets kicked off with this thing called Storm Call. It's a Google form. And we're going to have an expected launch date, a location, and then further details where we can add more information here. So with all these put together, that's going to allow us to build this notification system. The first thing we need to do in here is connect to the Google form. So you'll start out with this module here, and then just type Google Forms, and we want to watch responses. Okay, so do watch responses. You'll create a connection to that, and then you'll do a form ID. So you can see that mine up here is called Storm Call. So we have to do a search for that. So I'll just say Storm Call, and it should find it automatically. So it found the form ID. We're going to limit that to just 1 because I don't want to have multiple of these going off. The use case here is there's only a single storm call that would ever be going out. Okay, we're going to say from now on. And now we're watching that. Now, it's not a bad idea to test these things out so that you can get some of the data in place. So if we go to storm call, we can go here and get a responder link, copy that, and let's give ourselves a little response that we can test the output. So we'll say, let's say it's happening on Thursday, and the location is Lincoln, Nebraska. And further details, I'm just going to put this in here. So we'll say something like this. Big storm coming, need 8 guys, maybe gone for up to 2 weeks. Let me know if you have any trucks available to bring. And then we'll come in here. So now we've got one of these responses sitting inside there. And so we'll run this once. Okay. And it goes through, it found it, it looks like. And we've got expected launch date, text answers, first answer, and there's the date. Here's the further details. Okay, so now we're going to reference that in our next step here. Great. So the next step is we're going to pass this into ChatGPT, and we're going to create a message. You could just use a standard template if you want as well, but it's kind of fun to do it with AI. So we're going to create a completion. You'll make an OpenAI connection. You'll need a API key. There's a little bit of setup that goes with that. You want a chat completion here. And then model, I'm just going to say, let's just use the GPT-4 mini because it's not a very complex thing we're doing here. And that'll make your API calls a little bit cheaper. Not that it matters much in this case. And then typically what you're going to do is you're going to have two messages. So the first one gives the context, the developer or system message. And this one, I'm going to copy and paste this in here. We're going to tell this text completion, we'll call it a bot, what it is that it does. So you're a helpful assistant that creates a text message notification for a team of Powerline workers to notify them about an upcoming storm call. This sets the context of the kinds of words that will be used, the kinds of messages that have been used in the past that people are already familiar with. So the more specific you can get, the better. Now the message itself is going to be a user message. And that one is going to be what we want to send. So we're going to just say here, create a short text message. This is kind of like what you type into the ChatGPT prompt. Create a short text message that notifies a Powerline worker about an upcoming storm call opportunity, inviting them to respond whether they're going or not. And then we can go in here and we've got access to these answers that we just looked at. So we'll add here, include the following details. And then, oops, I missed that. And then we'll start with the details. The first one is expected launch date. And here, we're going to go in here, go expected launch date. And then we'll say text answers. And since we've already run it once, make.com is helpful enough to tell us what the value is. So if you're like, which one is it? There's so many layers. Well, just find the one that has the value. That's why we ran it at the beginning, so we could get those values. So we get the expected launch date. And then we'll say, we're going to also put a little note here to ChatGPT. So format date according to US standards. We might have to tweak that as we go, but that'll give us something that people are going to be expecting. Okay, the next one is location. And then we just go in here, same thing, go down to text answers value. And then the final one is further details. All right, and further details, same thing. Okay, so now we've got that. We're going to say, okay. Now you could build this whole thing out here. It's typical that you would, make sure you're saving as you go. This doesn't always auto save in make.com right now. And then you could run it again. That's the typical way that I develop. So I would do it, then I'd run it again, make sure the output's what I would expect. For the sake of time, we're going to not demonstrate that entire process. The next thing that we want to do is we're going to, in our Airtable, we have that list of contact names that I showed earlier. We're going to copy that into a responses table. And what that means is we're basically saying, okay, everybody who could go, we're going to track their responses for this storm call. So we need to have an ID for this storm call. And because this is a time-based thing, it makes sense for our ID to be based on the time that this Google form was submitted or sent out. So, or this make.com scenario is run. So we're going to go in here to tools, and then we're going to say set a variable. Okay. And this variable, we're going to call this, we'll call it storm call ID. Okay. And the value is going to be a timestamp. Okay. And you can see it's the number of seconds since midnight, January 1st, 1970 GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. Okay, so it's not going to show up anywhere to users, but that's for us for managing the responses so that we don't get confused with the previous storm call response. Okay, now that we have that, we're going to now go and get these Airtable records. So first thing that we need to do is we need to search the Airtable records. Okay, so we're going to search records. And again, you got to create a connection for everything that you access. This is what keeps you secure. So this is quite helpful. So you've got a call list. And then in the call list, we have contact names. And then in this case, we just want to grab the name, email, and WhatsApp. So there's also a text message here. Text messages are very possible to send out of make.com, but there's no easy way to do it for free. And so I'm not going to demonstrate that in this video. We're going to use WhatsApp instead because we can do that for free. So you're going to pull this data out. We'll limit it to 10 is fine for now. Okay, so now we're searching the records, and it makes sense, for your own maintenance to maybe update the names of these things so it's more clear what's going on. We'll now do we're going to copy these responses over. So we have our contact names, and then we're going to put them into the specific Airtable here for what responses people are giving us. So here we're going to do create a record. Again, we're going to go base call list. Table now is going to be responses instead of contact names. And now we're just going to copy everything over to this one. This is really nice with Airtable because it tells us exactly what the names of each of these fields are. So the call ID is this one that we set up before, so that's how we're going to organize them. The name, and then we're just going to do a mapping here. So name, and then response is not going to be mapped because that we are going to, in this video, we're not going to demonstrate having them make that response. You could get that response via a Google form, or you could get the response via a webhook. So that won't be in this video, but we'll leave that blank and we can demonstrate kind of how they would do that. So then next is email. And then finally is WhatsApp. This is their WhatsApp phone number. Okay, and that should get everything that we need. And so now we've got a situation where we've got a message generated. We have a time attached to that message. And then here in responses, we're going to take all these contacts here, and we're going to copy them over into this responses table. And then those will be sorted by a call ID so that we'll later just check for the call IDs that are related to this specific one. Okay, we're already about halfway through this scenario. The next piece here is a little bit more complex than I often do, but this is kind of a real world sort of system. So I'm going to add this repeater. And what we're wanting to do here is we want to send multiple messages if people don't give us a response. So in this scenario, we're just going to do 3 of them. It might be the case that in a real world kind of storm call thing, you might send 5, 10, depending on what's going to be the irritation level of the people that don't respond. We'll set it for 3. And then the next thing after that is we're going to search these responses. So we're now inside of a loop. Okay, so up until now, everything has been just getting things set up and getting all the information ready. Once we hit this loop, we're going to go around and we're going to basically go, okay, everybody who hasn't given us a response, send them a message. Then we're going to wait, and then we're going to do that again. Everyone who hasn't given us a response, send them a message. And then eventually we'll hit a point where either our repeater has run out, 3 times 5, whatever we set it for, or everyone has responded, yes or no. And once we have all the responses, then we just exit the loop. So that is the plan here. So the next thing, in order to check these responses, so we copied all those records into the responses table. So now, again, we're going to search records. And this time we're going to search the responses table. call list, table responses. Okay, and here we're going to select all the responses, and I put an email in here, I guess, on this one. We won't be sending email in this actual video, but you could easily do that. Now the formula here, this is a special formula for Airtable. So if you're using Google Sheets for this, you'll have to make a different formula. You'll probably actually add the formula in make.com on adding a filter here. But since it's Airtable, we can do it directly in here. So we're going to say it's an and formula, which means two things need to be true for us to send them a message. Okay, what are those two things? Number one, call ID. And notice I'm putting curly brackets around it. So this is an Airtable thing. I'm referencing the name of that column in Airtable, and it's called call ID. It equals, and then it needs to equal our storm call ID. Okay, so we don't want to accidentally send messages to people that were on a previous storm call. Okay, it needs to be only this storm call that we just generated just now. And then this is very similar to how you do this like in Excel or a spreadsheet formula. So we do comma, and then the other thing that needs to be true is their response. And their response, you can see here, is right here. So the response needs to be empty. Okay, and I'll put it in single quotes. So response needs to be empty. It needs to match the storm call ID. And then we're going to also limit this to 2 people at a time. You could maybe do 5. You could do whatever that round of messages, because you might have a situation where you've got 20 people that are on call, but you want to prioritize them because maybe the top ones are the best ones. So you want to give them the messages first. And so you want to not send, you want to basically, what's going to happen is as people respond to yes or no, then you're going to then send the messages out to the next round of people. This scenario doesn't have anything built around saying, okay, our team limit is 5, and so once we hit 5 responses, stop. 5 yes responses, stop sending messages. That would be kind of a further piece that would go into this system as you kind of productionize it. So we hit OK there, and now we're going to send the messages. This is a good place, I think, to stop and make sure everything is working. So I'll make sure you save. And the way that this one is set up is that you have to make a Google form response and then click run. You could also set this up to be an automatic trigger, which could come in through watching maybe the Excel sheet attached to the Google form or something like that. So Google Forms, typically it's going to scrape it every 5 minutes, or you can see how you can run it at regular intervals here. So you'd run it every minute, for example. Okay, but for now we're just going to demonstrate it this way. So I'm going to do submit another response, and now I'm just going to grab again another date, and then we'll just say somewhere USA, and then again further details. We'll give it this thing about big storm coming. All right, so we'll submit that, and now that hasn't triggered anything because we need to actually run it here. So we're going to run it once. Let's see how it goes. So this is really, really helpful. You'll notice that it generates this log output so we can see kind of what's happening. So we've got our result, attention team. We're expecting a big storm call in Somewhere USA launching on 1/3/2025. Okay, if I was really going to get picky here, I'd probably say on, whatever day of the week, and January, etc. Or I might even say in 3 days on. We need 8 workers, maybe gone for up to 2 weeks. Please respond if you're available and can bring trucks. Thanks. Okay, so it didn't take one-to-one. It kind of put that into a sort of helpful message there. I like that. Then it does a search records. So it went through and it found Watson Briggs and Sparks McAllister, who are those ones here. And then it created these records. So what it did here is it sorry, you see how it has contact names? It copied those over into responses and it gave them a call ID. You see that call ID is the same one, the same number here. So now it's going to go back and forth between these guys. Then we hit our repeater. And in the repeater, it ran through this 2 different times. Okay, so we're looking good so far. So now the last piece here is we want to send the message. So let's jump into that next. Let's first send the message, and then I'm going to show you how to create a delay in this loop here, because we don't want to send the messages to people over and over again and get them irritated. So we'll first go to this. We want to send a WhatsApp message. We could do emails. We could do text. As we said, text is a little bit harder to set up. You can send messages through a lot of different platforms. A lot of them allow that. So first, let's do a search for WhatsApp. There's a lot of ways to send WhatsApp messages, and I'm going to use in-out personal WhatsApp cloud. There's other options here as well, and I haven't tried all of these, so there might be one better than this, but this one's pretty easy. So we're going to send a WhatsApp message, and you need to have a WhatsApp account to be able to send this. And you're going to have to create a connection, which will mean connecting up to this service. It doesn't cost any money, which is great for testing. And so we're going to put a message in here. So the message that we put in here is going to be a very simple template. And we're going to start by just, we're going to basically just send what we sent here. So we've got this response that came out of OpenAI. And it says, attention team, we're expecting a big storm. I like to go into choices. You know how sometimes when you work with ChatGPT, they'll give you 2 choices. So I like to specify the first one and grab the content out of that. It's the same here, result in both. I just grabbed the first one by default. So we're going to send that message that we generated way back earlier. Message type message makes sense for me. And we're going to say, okay. All right. And now we should be able to send a WhatsApp message. But we have a little problem is this repeater repeats 3 times. So when we send it, it's going to go bing, bing, bing. And that's going to be annoying. You're going to get 3 messages. What we want is only to send the message again if you haven't responded within 5 minutes in this case. So we need to put a delay. So if you imagine this repeater, it's not graphically necessarily represented here, but it's going to go through this, and then it's going to go back to the repeater and do it again 3 times. And so we want to add a delay here that is going to give us a chance to keep from annoying people. So go to Tools, and you want Sleep. And this is a limitation in Make.com. There are ways to get around this. If you need to, let's say you want to do it every hour, in this kind of scenario, that might be the case. You might have to do something more complex. For this demonstration, we'll just do it every 5 minutes. And so we'll say, okay. Actually, you know what? Let's just do every 30 seconds here. So we'll say, okay. Now, in a real world scenario, 30 seconds is too short, of course. So we will now submit another response for storm call. And then we'll see if we get a message. Okay, so we're going to say, let's do the launch date on the 8th. And we'll say somewhere USA again. And again, we'll use this message, big storm coming. All right, so now we submit it. Go over here. Don't forget to save your responses. And then we'll zoom out just slightly so we can see the whole thing happen. So run once. Get our Google form. We get our response. And then I'm going to pull open my WhatsApp. And we got the message. So it says message from Make. And this is because it's make.com. You can configure this more in your account there. Storm call alert. We have a big storm coming. We're launching on 1/8. That's exactly what we said. Somewhere USA. Need 8 crew members. This call may last up to 2 weeks. Please respond if you're available and can bring trucks. Thank you. And then we got a storm emoji. That was clever. So that's it. You notice that it went through a delay just now as we were talking, and then it sent the next message because I hadn't responded yet. There you have it. We've got a full scenario that allows us to use a Google form for the boss or the foreman to trigger this storm call. We get a generated AI message, so the boss doesn't have to think about what he's going to even write, really, other than just a few minor details. That then is put into an Airtable, and that gives us a way to categorize responses, which is not part of this video, but would be a separate scenario that we would add in to kind of build out the complete system. And then we go on a repeat, and we just keep sending messages to people until we repeat as many times as we want to, or they have all responded. And so we check those responses, we make the message call, and then we sleep, for up to 5 minutes in this scenario. So there's a lot you can do with messaging systems. This is a specific example. There's lots of different kinds of ways these can be set up depending on what your company is doing. So this is for Storm Call. You might have, a custom reminder system. There's obviously pretty good stuff you can get from calendars that are built in, like Google Calendar and stuff. But there's a lot of times where you need to have it baked into the business itself, and it just doesn't work to just use personal calendar reminders. And also, if you want to have AI built into it where you're generating messages, for example, let's say that you've got, a rental company and you've got maintenance workers. You could take a Google Sheet or an Airtable with all the maintenance tasks that are coming due. And then you could create one of these scenarios that sends messages to the responsible maintenance worker about what their tasks are for the day. You could do that kind of thing with lots of different kinds of companies, legal, all sorts of things. So this is a very, very powerful system, and encourage you to dig in a little bit more and see how it might work for your business.